Hi everyone, I'm Principal Samberg, the proud principal at Vero Beach Elementary, a moonshot school. And at our school, we have a strong emphasis on early literacy skills that will help build proficient readers and learners for a lifetime. Today, I have the privilege of reading a book, Hidden Figures. This is an awesome book, and it's a true story about 4 Black women and their space race. Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, Katherine Johnson, and Christine Darden were good at math. Really good. In 1943, the United States was at war, World War II. Dorothy Vaughan wanted to serve her country by working for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the government's agency that designed airplanes. Having the best airplanes would help America win the war. Making airplanes fly faster and higher and safer meant doing lots of tests at the agency's Langley Laboratory in Hampton, Virginia. Tests meant numbers, numbers meant math, and math meant computers. Today, we think of computers as machines, but way back in history, in 1940, computers were actual people like Dorothy. Mary, Katherine, and Christine. Their job was to do math, just like a computer. Because Dorothy was Black and a woman, some people thought it would be impossible for her to get a job as a computer. She's not really a computer, but I think they're referring to Dorothy as a computer here. She lived in Virginia, which was a southern state where laws segregated or kept apart Black people and white people. They could not eat in the same restaurants. They could not drink from the same water fountains. They could not use the same restrooms. They could not attend the same schools. They could not play on the same sports teams. They could not sit near each other in the movie theater. They could not marry someone from a different race. Wow, times were really different back then. But Dorothy, she was clever. She did not think that was impossible. She was good at math. Remember, she was really good. She knew that she was the right person for the job, so she applied, and the laboratory offered her a position as a computer. At work, Blacks and whites were kept apart. I read that on the other page, so that makes sense. The white computers, which are really people, worked in one building, and Dorothy and the other Black computers worked in a different building, in a separate office. Even though they worked on the same kinds of assignments, the Black computers and white computers used separate bathrooms and ate in separate lunchrooms. Oh, this is exciting news. America won the war in 1945. But Dorothy got to stay on the job, still trying to make airplanes faster and safer. By 1951, the Americans and the Russians were competing to see who could build the best planes. I wonder who it's going to be. That meant more experiments and more numbers. And I remember that they are really good at numbers and math. Lots and lots of numbers. And the more numbers meant the more need for computers. That tells me they're going to be hiring more people. That's when Mary Jackson got a job as a computer at Langley. She worked in a group that tested model airplanes with wind tunnels. A wind tunnel was a machine, like a huge metal box, with a powerful fan attached. Mary put model airplanes in wind tunnels and blasted them with air from the fan. That sounds like so much fun. This experiment helped her group improve their designs on the models before building full-size airplanes. Their work sounds really helpful. Mary wanted to become an engineer, but officials said it was impossible. Most of the engineers at the laboratory were men. And to become an engineer, Mary had to take high-level math classes. But she wasn't allowed to go inside the white school where the classes were taught. I wonder if she's going to think of a way to take these classes on her own. But Mary was good at math, really good. And she refused to give up. I like her determination. She got permission to enter the school building and take the math classes, and she earned good grades. Because she didn't give up, Mary Jackson became the first African-American female engineer in the laboratory. She doesn't look scared, does she? Katherine Johnson was good at math and always asked a lot of questions. In 1953, she applied to the laboratory for a computer job and was placed on the team that tested actual planes while they were flying in the air. That sounds exciting. Their research was used to figure out ways to prevent future crashes. In one of her first projects, she learned how to analyze turbulence. Turbulence is dangerous gusts of air. No one knows how many lives her work has actually helped save. Katherine wanted to help the group prepare its research reports, so she asked if she could go to the meetings with the other experts on the team. Her boss told her it was impossible. I've heard that a couple of times in the story that we're reading. I think she's going to prove them wrong. Women aren't allowed to attend meetings, he said, but Katherine knew she was good at math, just like everybody else, maybe even a little bit better. So she asked him again, and again, and again. Katherine asked her boss so many times that he finally invited her to the meeting. Probably not because he believed that she could do it, but just so she would probably stop asking him. Katherine, as we know, was good at math, really, really good. And because she fought to be treated the same as men, she became the first woman in her group to sign her name to one of the group's reports. In the 1950s, the Langley Laboratory bought a machine computer. So they're moving from human computers to machine computers. And these machines, could do math faster than the human computers. At first, these machines made mistakes. Dorothy learned how to program the machines so they got the right answers. She taught the women in her group how to program the computers too. In 1957, Russia launched a satellite known as Sputnik into orbit around the Earth. The United States started building satellites to explore space too. For years, the laboratory had to use math to design airplanes. Now it would need math to create spaceships as well. The government decided to change the agency's name from the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. You guys know this as NASA. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy told Congress, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth." A man on the moon? But the first step to getting a man on the moon was to send an astronaut around the Earth. NASA was going to need to hire more space experts and more people who were good at math, really good at math. The people at the laboratory had to work together from morning to night to figure out how to send astronaut John Glenn into space and to bring him back to Earth safely. Katherine Johnson knew she could do the math to help. "Tell me where you want this spaceship to land, and I'll tell you where to launch it," Katherine told her boss. Katherine helped calculate the trajectories, which are also known as pathways, that rockets traveled through space. She had to plan Glenn's exact route from takeoff in Florida to splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean. There was absolutely no room for error. No one was better than Katherine at solving these tricky math problems. Days before the mission, John Glenn wanted Katherine to double-check the machine computer's trajectory calculations, just to make sure there weren't any mistakes. When Katherine said the numbers were correct, Glenn was ready to go. On February 20th, 1962, Glenn blasted off into space, circled the Earth, and made his way home safely. Phew, I bet that was really scary for them the first time. Meanwhile, laws began to change so that black and white students could go to school together. Blacks fought for the right to sit beside whites on buses and to drink out of the same water fountains. At the laboratory, black and white computers, which we know are really people, started working together in the same offices, eating at the same lunch tables, and using the same bathrooms, just like we're used to today. Black and white moviegoers could also sit next to each other in the same theater. Across the country, people started to think about the ways to bring equality to all Americans. Christine Darden was good at math, and she loved electronic computers. She started working at Langley in 1967. Christine wanted to become an engineer, and thanks to Dorothy, Mary, and Katherine, she knew it was possible. Eventually, she did become an engineer for supersonic airplanes. These are planes that fly faster than the speed of sound. But her first job was to help with NASA's mission to the moon. The people at the laboratory prepared for years to send astronauts to the moon, about 238,900 miles away from Earth. That's a really long way. Finally, on July 20th, 1969, the world watched as the three men arrived in their Apollo 11 spacecraft. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, the astronaut Neil Armstrong said when he stepped onto the dusty surface. But it was also a giant leap for Dorothy, Mary, Katherine, and Christine, and all of the other computers and engineers who had worked at the laboratory over the years. The moon landing was a success from takeoff to splashdown, but there was no time to rest. Once NASA landed astronauts on the moon, the people at the laboratory began dreaming of sending humans to other planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They started to imagine hyper-fast space planes that could travel around the Earth at 7 times the speed of sound. Wow, that sounds really fast. Faster than any car that I've ever seen. The next adventure wouldn't be easy, and it would require lots of tests and lots more numbers. But Dorothy, Mary, Katherine, and Christine knew one thing. With hard work, perseverance, and a love of math, anything is possible. I hope you all have enjoyed this story just as much as I have, and thanks for listening.